Hi friends, as you are aware, Growpital has submitted a capital return plan to SEBI uh, and that will undergo a hearing at the SAT. However, nobody knows at the moment what that return or the payout plan looks like. So in this video, I'm taking a speculative guess at what that likely payout plan for investors could be from Growpital. Now, a disclaimer first that this is completely my logical imagination, the operating word being logical. This, whatever I present over here, has not been confirmed by Growpital, and it's at best a reasonable guess from my side. You can attribute it to my investigative uh, journalism tendencies. So let's jump right into it. So before we understand the way the payout plan would work out, we must first understand how the investment flow went about when we invested in Growpital. So here are the important actors and concepts in the system. So naturally we had the investors, which are us, and we used to deposit money on the Growpital website, and the money used to be logically be shown into what I call as a Growpital user account. Uh, this is just a software concept where it displayed whatever is the money you have put in into the system. From there, you used to invest in a plan, and there were several different plans offering various kinds of returns. And then this once you invested in a plan, that became your capital contribution in that plan because several other investors would also invest in this plan and therefore contribute to this capital out here. So you have a share of the capital over here. And then this money was invested in the business by Growpital, and that's how the business was run. And of course, all your money was actually present in the bank account, and the user account out here logically showed what is the money which you have brought in and which you could invest in a plan. So the bank account was real, but the Growpital user account was a software entity. So that's how the investment process went about in one way. Now let's see how the returns were generated. So there were several ways the returns could be generated. One of the ways was a profit share. So naturally, once you invested into the business used to generate cash flows and the returns. So they used to, of course, go into the bank account, and your share, as per the amount of capital which you had invested, used to be reflected logically in your user account on the website. And from here, you could choose to withdraw the money to your own bank account, and then the money used to come from the bank account into your bank account. So that was one way the returns could be generated, which is uh, the profit share of the returns generated by the business. But there were other ways as well uh, by which you could get the money. For example, let's say you invested into a plan and you have a capital contribution and the business is running. You have the option of opting out of the plan or canceling the plan. In that case, whatever is your share of the capital which you had invested went back into your user account, and from there you could withdraw it back to your own bank account. So that was the second way by which you could get the money out of the system again into your own bank account. But there was a third way as well, and that was if a plan matured. So every plan had a fixed tenure, and let's say it generated the returns, you didn't cancel it, and eventually the plan matured. So in that case, also the amount of capital which you had invested into this plan went back into your Growpital user account, from where you could withdraw it to your own bank account. And of course, you were retired from the LLP in that case. So these were the three ways by which you could take the money out of the system back into your account. All right. Now, having revised the concept of investment and the way you could get the money out of the system, let's focus on the two important concepts out here. Now, I'm telling you all this because eventually in the payout plan which I'm going to introduce to you, these concepts will be important. So the first concept is the concept of the Growpital user account, which is sort of a logical account in the software which showed the amount of money which you could withdraw to your own bank account. And the money used to be reflecting over here because of the following: either because of the profit share returns which were generated by the business, or because you cancelled a plan having invested in it earlier, or because a plan matured, or a fourth way, that if you deposited money uh, and therefore it reflected in your user account, but you never invested in a plan for some reason. In that case also, that's the money which was present in your Growpital user account. So this is the first concept. This is an important concept of what I call the Growpital user account, which reflects the amount of money which you can take out of the system. And the second important concept is this concept of capital. So when you invest in a plan, you're not the only one investing in that plan. Several investors would be investing in that plan, and therefore what you invest is what I call your capital contribution of the total amount of capital by all the investors present over here. So naturally, whatever you invest and which becomes your capital contribution, it is a fraction of the total similar capital contributions done by all the investors. So for a given plan, your capital contribution is a fraction. All right, so remember these things: the user account, which is a money which you can take out of the system at any point of time, and second is your capital contribution, which is sort of money locked into the business. All right, with that out of the way, let's jump to the likely payout plan for the investors by Growpital. And I anticipate it to be a two-step plan, step 1 and step 2. Of course, the steps will be executed immediately, one after the other. But what are step 1 and what are these step 1 and 2 is what I'm going to describe now. All right, so here's a possible return plan in step 1, and listen to it carefully. So the algorithm for this would be: check the user account balance on 29th of Jan 2024. You might recall 29th of Jan 2024 is an important date because that is a date on which SEBI froze the bank accounts of Growpital. So step 1 entails checking the user account balance on the 29th Jan 2024 for a given investor. And the deal is that just return that amount in full from the funds that hopefully will be unfrozen now. So whatever was your user account balance on 29 Jan 2024, that amount will be returned in full, back to the investor. Now you might be wondering that if such is the case, then what about the guys who had no amount in the user account on 29 Jan 2024 but had some money locked as a capital contribution? Can it happen that this money present in the user accounts and which will be returned will just eat away all the unfrozen funds? No, that is not the case. We are assuming that the amount that is present in these user accounts is a small percentage of the total funds frozen. We know that the total funds frozen are approximately 52.5 crores. So we can assume, for example, that 2.5 crores will be present in all the user accounts. So even if the full money is distributed from the user accounts back to the investors, there'll still be enough money left to return back additional money to the investors for their capital contribution as well. And the logic for this is that normally investors don't keep the money lying idle in the user accounts. A large part of the money is usually invested into the various plans and therefore becomes a capital contribution. So with that assumption, there's an important caveat that if you canceled your plan after 29 Jan 2024 when the funds were frozen, then the money would have reflected in your wallet because you canceled your plan, or what I call the user account. But this is not eligible for the above because the amount was not there in your user account or wallet on 29 Jan 2024. And it will still be treated as your capital contribution, effectively saying that any cancellations after 29 Jan 2024 are invalid, and if you have invested and cancelled, that cancellation will not be considered, and that money will be deemed to have been invested into that plan, and all cancellations after 29 Jan 2024 are invalid. Okay, so which means as part of step 1, you will get your entire money present in the user account on the Growpital website uh, as on 29 Jan 2024, and you will get that full amount. Okay, that's step 1. Now there's a step 2. So assume that the funds left after distribution from step 1 payout are X. In my example, which I gave to you earlier, I assume that 50 crores will be left out after distribution from the step 1. But let's assume in a generic fashion that this amount of funds left after distribution from step 1 are X. Now this X will be considered as a pie which will be cut across various investors and distributed to them. And you will get a portion of X based on your capital contribution vis-a-vis the capital contribution of all the investors as a snapshot on the 29 Jan 2024. Once again, I reiterate, if you made an investment in a plan and cancelled after 29 Jan 2024, that cancellation would be considered invalid, and that will still be treated as a capital contribution in that plan. So that's a step 2 payout, which is that based on your capital contribution, you will get a portion of the X, which is the funds left after distribution from step 1. So this might be abstract, so let's try to take an example. So let's say an investor has 1 lakh in capital for a plan as seen on 29 Jan 2024. Let's further assume that his user account balance is 0 on the 29 Jan 2024. Let's assume that the total capital contribution by all the investors put together is C. So what does the investor get? As part of the step 1 payout, he gets 0 because he never had anything in his user account on the 29 Jan 2024. Let's further assume that the total funds available after all step 1 payouts are X. So the investor will get step 2 payout as his capital contribution, which is 1 lakh into X divided by C, and the total money that the investor gets is 0 plus a fraction of 1 lakh, depending on what the values of X and C are. So let's fill in the values of X and C as examples in this example 1. So again, the investor has 1 lakh invested in a plan. His user account has 0 on 29 Jan 2024. Let's assume that the total capital contribution by all the investors is 192 crores. The step 1 payout is 0 for him. And we are further assuming that out of the 52.5 crores of frozen money, 2.5 crores have been doled out to the investors as step 1 payouts, and therefore only 50 crores are left for the step 2 payouts. So for this investor, the step 2 payout would be his capital contribution and the fraction of that, so 1 lakh into 50 divided by 192, and therefore the money that investor gets is 26,041 approximately. So that's the amount of money which this investor can expect to get if he has invested 1 lakh and his user account has 0 balance on 29 Jan 2024. Let's take the example 2. In this case, let's assume the investor has again invested 1 lakh in capital for a plan. However, on 29 Jan 2024, he has 25,000 lying in his user account. So, again assume that the total contribution, capital contribution by all the investors is C. So as step 1 payout, he will get his full amount in the user account, which is 25,000. And again assume that total funds available after all the step 1 payouts are X. So he'll further get, as part of the step 2 payout, a fraction of his capital contribution depending on the values of X and C. So he will get 25,000 as step 1 payout, and as step 2 payout he'll get 1 lakh into X by C. And let's again throw in the numbers of X and C. So the investor has 1 lakh in capital with the plan. His the wallet of the user account has 25,000 as seen on 29 Jan 2024. And let's assume that the total capital contribution by all investors is 192 crores. So as part of the step 1 payout, he gets his entire 25,000 back. And let's assume that the total funds available After all, step 1 payouts is 50 crores, as I mentioned previously. So his step 2 payout would be 1 lakh into 50 divided by 192. So total money that the investor can expect to get back is 25,000 plus the fraction of 1 lakh, and based on the math, it comes out to be 51,041. So that's about it. These are just some theoretical calculations based on what I anticipate is to be the likely payout plan uh, proposed by Growpital to SEBI. It of course remains to be seen whether SEBI and or SAT will allow this plan. Thank you.